Don Houston here, Director of Facilities at Mission Community College, and today we're going to talk about an image. We're going to talk about something that I did 40 years ago, and it's called Image 90571, taken 42 years ago when I was a teaching assistant at the University of California, Berkeley. At that time, we were doing something called pattern language. It was a kind of an innovative idea for third world countries where people would build their own homes in those countries and not have to worry about large developments by the government or by outside agencies, and they could actually take their lives into their own hands and build their own environment. So pattern language was this new innovative technique that we were trying to teach architects to use in the field, and therefore we were teaching it as an undergraduate education and then also in graduate school. At that time, I was TA in the class, and there was one particular gentleman or young man who was doing his dream house using pattern language, but unlike others who did it in squares and rectangles and trapezoids, he did his in circles. And it was really amazing. He was one of the few that actually did his environment in circles. And so we would use like paper mache, and we would cut things out. We would cut up little pieces of paper to simulate beds and chairs and tables and so forth. And his rooms were circles. And I thought that was pretty interesting. I was like, wow, that's different. When he did it, I took a photograph of his design, and that is slide 90571. So I thought it was pretty cool, but I packed it away with all the rest of my stuff and proceeded on with becoming an architect and moving on in my career. Well, about a year ago, I was sitting down and I was writing the history of some of my experiences at the University of California. I also ran the community design video collective called Tellum inside of the University of California Environmental Design Department. And what we did as students, we put together our own classes, shaped our own curriculum. We went out and interviewed people who were actually being affected by urban design and by redevelopment. And we brought those interviews back into the college, and we showed the community to the designers. I was writing the history of that, and at one point I needed a slide that presented the idea of home. I was talking about, at least in my case, where my community had been destroyed by redevelopment. Back in the 60s, Justin Herman had totally destroyed the black community in the Fillmore district of San Francisco, where I lived. And I was talking about the many places that I then had to live in that I called home. And I wanted a slide that depicted this collage of elements that now I could say was my home. So what I did was I went back into my slide collection and I looked for a slide that I said, wow, this is kind of like home. And to my surprise, I pulled out slide 90571. Out of the thousands of slides that I have, I pulled that slide out. In pulling that slide out, a very strange thing happened. It was as if the unconscious was at work and it was playing a joke on me, playing a trick. I proceeded to change the slide after I'd pulled it out into what's called a giclée. A giclée is a painting that's made from doctoring or modifying the slide and then printing it on canvas with the use of a large inkjet printer. I mean, oversized inkjet printer. And you can print at any size. You can print pretty big stuff. And the idea was to change the slide into a painting that I could give to my professor who had taught that class 42 years earlier. It was going to be a present for him. I worked on it, had it made, and it was sitting in my apartment. One of my colleagues that had gone to school with me came over one evening. She also knew the same professor, and I was telling her, hey, I'm going to give this to Professor Lefshay, as a gift. And inadvertently, it was sitting in the landscape position, but as I showed it to her, I flipped it and it was in the portrait position. And she looked at it, and I looked at it, and she started laughing. I said, well, normally people don't laugh at my work. What's going on? This is a really different one, I know. Normally I do other types of work, but this one's more abstract and, but you're laughing. She started really laughing hard. And I said, well, what are you laughing about? She says, don't you see it? I said, no, what am I looking at? She goes, look carefully. I said, well, I can't see it. And she says, don't you see the clown? And I went, oh, wow, wait a minute, I do see the clown. I see, for the first time in 42 years, I saw a clown face in a photograph that I'd been looking at for a very long time. And then I went, oh my God, wait a minute. The clown has a black face. The clown is blackface. What does that mean? Does that mean the clown ties into blackface? If someone went on the internet and pulled out a bunch of pictures, which I did. I went on the internet and pulled some pictures down and put them next to my giclée. Wait a minute, could someone looking at my painting think I'm a racist because I've made a racist blackface clown and didn't know it? It took me back. I said, oh my God, wait a minute. I'm gonna change all the black on the blackface to white. Let's see what happens. Destroyed the painting. It was no longer a painting. I said, well, maybe I should flip it upside down. Can I flip it upside down and not see the clown? Couldn't do it. Every time I now flipped the giclée in any position, the clown was still there. Now I saw it. Then I stepped back and I said, my goodness, wait a minute now. If someone could walk in and for the first time see the clown in blackface and then think that my work was racist, how could I defend myself on that? Could I defend myself? That was a question. Secondly, once I'd seen the blackface clown, I couldn't help but see the blackface clown. There was no way that I could not see it anymore. Now, what does that do at that point? That means that once a person has designated my abstract painting as a blackface clown, that's what people are going to see, and that's the only way they're going to be able to see it. So then my question becomes, do I have a right to see it a different way? Do I have a right to see it from a different perspective? And if I do you have a right to make me see the blackface clown? It's a question. It's a question of liberty. It's a question of art. And if I can see the blackface clown, and you can see the blackface clown, and then I turn it a different way, and I can see an abstract painting of a man walking a dog, but you have to see the blackface clown. If you make me see the blackface clown, then have you infringed on my liberty of perception? Have you told me that I cannot perceive the work any other way other than how you see it? Now that's a question one must ask oneself as you're talking about the unconscious cultural bias. We're not talking about seeing it in others. Who brought the cultural bias to the painting 90571? I didn't bring the cultural bias to it. You did. Whoever brought it and sees the blackface clown and then has a reaction to the blackface, they're the one that are bringing that to the situation, not me as the artist. It's something that we really have to think about. As social justice moves forward and demands a certain education and a certain perspective of understanding the world, we must also understand that we ourselves are also subject to unconscious bias, and in doing so can curtail the liberties of others. And that's something I don't think we really want to do. So, thank you very much for my blackface clown called Mr. Bill, or image 90571.